Hello everyone, welcome to today's CMC webinar on mitigating go-live risk with ProfilerLive. Please note, although we do schedule these webinars for an hour, they can run a little longer or shorter depending on how much interaction we have. You can access the slides for today's webinar using the handouts pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. So if you click the little plus next to the word handouts, you'll then see a little link that you can click to download the slides. My name is John Saunders. I'll be leading the engagement in today's webinar. We'll have a series of polls throughout to gauge your views and experiences of today's topic. But we'd also love to hear your questions and comments as well, and you can send those in to us using the question pane in your control panel. So any questions or comments that you type in, if we read those out, we won't be sharing your name or your organization. It'll be completely anonymous. So we would love for you to interact with us through the webinar. Our host today is Michael Campbell. Michael's a director at CMC and a ProSci Advanced instructor. He leads our 3-day practitioner certification courses and also works closely with sponsors and managers to help them fulfill their role in change. Just a bit about CMC. We are the primary affiliate of ProSci for the UK, Ireland and Singapore. So we deliver public ProSci training courses in those locations and private training for individual organizations anywhere in the world. So that includes the 3-day practitioner certification course, 1-day workshops for sponsors and managers on their role in change, a 1-day workshop for project team members on how to effectively integrate their work with change management, and some more advanced workshops for practitioners, such as how to write the business case for change management and how to build enterprise change management capability. We also work with organizations to help them build their change delivery capability, both in program project management and in change management, and provide hands-on support to specific changes. If you're interested in finding out any more about any of that, our courses or the other work that we do, please chat in and we can get back to you about that. So today's guest presenter is Simon Brown from ProfilerLive. We'll be looking in detail today at how to apply Profiler to ensure that people are ready for go live, and Simon will be providing examples of how it's been used in practice. And with that, I'm just going to hand over to Michael, who, before we kick off the webinar, wants to put it in the context of the rest of the series. So if you just bear with me while I hand over to Michael.
Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to our number 6 webinar. I see that we've got distinguished people from around the world joining, and so we are also testing the webinar technology as well, because I'm in Singapore, Simon's in Dublin, and John is in sunny Wales. So let's hope it all holds together and we have a fun ride today. So as I said, this is number 6 in our series, kind of the first of our 2 webinars that are slightly more advanced, on a more advanced application of change management. And for those of you that haven't attended the rest of the series, you missed some good things. But you'll know that these webinars live and die by the quality and quantity of the interaction that we get from you. So please give us your questions as they occur, and please just type them into the chat. And what we'll do is, when we pause to do some of the polls and interactive things with you, John will also read out the questions, and myself and Simon will do our best to answer your questions as they come up. So we look forward to your interaction, and with that, let's see if I can move the slides forward. I can. Here we go. So a little bit about ProfilerLive. Cloud-based series of software solutions, customizable software solutions that are very flexible, all about really building people's competency and capability and testing that competency and capability down at a very granular and detailed level. So that's what we're going to talk more about. I don't propose to spend too much time giving you the commercial on ProfilerLive. I'm sure Simon will do that as we go through a little bit as well. So what's the background here? Well, what we're really seeing is that projects are still failing to deliver the business results. That's what we're we're really seeing. Still failing to deliver those business results, and there are a range of reasons why those projects are failing to deliver their business results. You can see, hopefully, if this slide has now come up, and perhaps, John, you can just give me a confirmation that you're seeing the pie chart slide. You can see that something like 35% of projects are failing to meet their budget, 43% are failing to meet their objectives, and 60% of the projects, according to ProScience Best Practices research data, are failing to finish on time. So that's not a good situation. Another data point I guess we can look at as well is some information from the Major Projects Authority for the UK government that looks at big projects going on in the UK government, and they were seeing an increase in the number of projects that are reported to be at amber or red risk of failure. So that is actually a challenge for us moving forward. And now I think what we're going to do is dip into a poll. So let me try and here we go. Dip into a poll. John, are you going to launch the poll?
Yep, so I've just launched a poll, and you can select one of these responses in answer to the question: what percentage of the ROI or benefits of a project you support depend on people changing their ways of working? So that could be an average figure for various projects that you can think of, or if you like, just think of a single project that you've got recent experience on, and consider to what extent does the benefits of that project rely on people changing their ways of working. So about half of you have voted there. So for those of you, if you're away from your GoToWebinar control panel and you want to cast your vote, I'll just count down now and close that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So as we can see, most people there are saying above 60%. In fact, the vast majority, although a handful are saying less than that. Michael, that's pretty much in keeping with what we've seen in general when we ask this question in workshops and on webinars.
Yeah, it is. In fact, we ask this question pretty commonly, and the average answer is around 70%. So 70% of the benefits in the typical project are reliant upon people changing the way they work. I always have my favorite follow-up question to that, which is what percentage of your budget have you got allocated to supporting those people through the transition, so those impacted people through the transitions? And usually the answer to that is somewhere between 0 and 10%. So, we're kind of spending 95% of our budget going after all of the technical benefits, which only represent about 30% of the ROI. Interesting kind of data point to think about. So we've got another poll, I think, John, haven't we?
Yes, we do, and this is one in which you can select more than one answer, so you may wish to take a little longer to think about this. Which of these symptoms have you experienced around Project Go Live? And hopefully we'll now, coming onto the webinar, be able to make some connections between any of these problems that you've faced and the potential ProfilerLive approach to helping deal with that. If you're wondering as well who else are making up the respondents in these polls, we have people joining these webinars from all over the world, multiple industries, pharmaceuticals, IT, manufacturing, as well as public sector and academia. And from far west as the USA and South American countries, and right out far east as well. So we've got a broad range of people participating in these polls. More than half of you voted now, so I'm just going to count down and close that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's take a look at the results. So 76% are saying fraught user acceptance testing and reluctant UAT sign-off. That's the most experienced, but actually all of these have been experienced by at least 40% of our respondents there, Michael. So yeah, common problems.
Wow, that's a high number, 76% fraught user acceptance testing. Thank you, John. And hopefully you're seeing my slide now, which is talking about how to mitigate the people risk in change projects one person at a time. If you remember, some of the principles that we've taught in the previous webinars have been that there's no such thing really as organizational change, although we talk about changes in an organizational context, introducing this capability, that capability. Actually, change is felt and delivered one person at a time. So how can we go about reducing that people risk in change projects one person at a time? That's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And what Simon's going to be taking us through in a few minutes is we're going to look at, this is a real live case study, this is not something we've made up. It's where a global insurance company was looking to introduce a new document management system and to ensure that it was successfully implemented throughout the business by all different aspects of the business. They had an issue in terms of needing to identify any gaps in capability, then provide some targeted fixes for those gaps in capability at an individual level, and wanted to then demonstrate that each person who was impacted by this change could act with proficiency in the new way of working. We're looking to generate proficiency in the new way of working. So John, I think we have another poll now.
Yes, and in this case, please think of a recent project that you've got experience of. How challenging would you say it would be, was it for the majority of users to demonstrate their required capability in new ways of working? So this is prior to go live. You've got a couple of options there. Please do chat in your questions and comments and experiences, by the way, if you want to add in anything at any point. We'll be passing over to Simon shortly to talk about ProfilerLive case study that Michael's just mentioned, but please feel free throughout to send in any questions or comments you have. You don't have to wait until we have a poll to share your views. Anyway, let's take a look at the results of that poll then. So 31% are saying we didn't test for this at all, and then 20% saying very challenging, 17% somewhat more difficult. So we've only got about 31% there saying it was achieved with support after the training or it was somewhat easy. So much improvement to be had in this area, Michael.
Yeah, that's quite surprising. 31% of you kind of launching a new capability and hoping that everybody's, the training was great and everybody's got it. That's interesting, and quite I don't know, risk preferring, I suppose, would be the polite way of saying that. So yeah, let's try and put this in the context of ADKAR. So ADKAR, if you remember, is ProSci's individual model for change. And the words stand for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And one of the key, and ADKAR helps us keep score, if you like, of the success of our change, one person at a time. So it helps us keep score of how well all of the impacted people that are impacted by this change, how well they are moving through the change and moving towards the new ways of working. And one of the key transitions in ADKAR is moving from the K of knowledge into the A of ability, the second A of ability, because ADKAR is a sequence. And the reason that's important is because that's the point that we need to ensure that proficiency in the new way of working is happening. People are using the new system in the way in which we expect them to use it, and also they're using the full capability of the new system. That transition from K to A in ADKAR is critical because it's the point at which the return on investment, the expected business benefits of our change, is actually starts to generate, starts to build, because that benefit is only built up one person at a time, one impacted person at a time. And so that's why this is such an important process. And you can see here, I'm not going to go through all the details of the 5 steps that Simon's built here to kind of show how you would align the way in which ProfilerLive works with with AGCAR, but you can see here there is some pretty good alignment. And what we're going to do is use the case study really to illustrate that in a bit more detail. So, okay, so there we go. So we're trying to get everybody to high scores on AGCAR, and what we're looking at today in particular is how do we test for proficiency in the new required ways of working, and how can we use technology to do that, and why is that important? So Simon, welcome to the webinar, and great to have you here, and I'll hand over to you to cover the next few slides on this case study, but I'm also going to play the Columbo, the Inspector Columbo in this process, and try and just ask that question as I'm going out of the room. Just one more question with my Mac on. Just one more question that the audience may want to ask you. So away you go, Simon.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, everybody. It's great thanks very much for the invitation today, and look forward to sharing with you guys a case study that we created on the back of some work we did with one of the world's top general insurance and reinsurance companies. Basically, the organisation that we worked with are a global company. They employ 17,000 people across the world, and as far as they're concerned, ensuring staff are accredited and compliant is vital to the company, so they can mitigate their own financial and judicial risks. So last year, the company faced the challenge of really significant changes to business systems and processes, including the rollout of a new document management system, or DMS, across 8 office locations located in the UK. Now, the project was multi-level, it was complex, and it was within a highly challenging insurance environment. And the success of the DMS implementation depended on an effective change management program that would really ensure that all the UK employees were trained and fully functional in the new system, and also believed in its value. Now, we were brought in quite late into the project. It was quite close to go live, but the project teams were concerned about where everybody was at, and as it turned out, subsequently they were quite right to be so. And they were concerned that users simply didn't understand how to operate the new system, and if they were correct, then at go live there would have been a very, very significant implication for the organisation's ability to carry out the basic day-to-day back office functions of the organisation. So the project team wanted us to start by verifying their concerns through a survey of staff to see how they felt about their own readiness for go live, their understanding of the system, and how they'd rated the training, and then to run a hard assessment to test the user's actual knowledge on both system basics and also to check users' understanding in real-world scenarios around how to respond to different situations or different scenarios. So the first step was basically to seek opinion about DMS, the training and the trainers, and we created a survey with the client, and we used some of the 14 different question types that we have available in the system. And our key focus here was to get insight back from the user community about the change. So the questions that were asked were about what they thought about the software, about what they thought about the training, and about any improvements that could be made. And of course, about whether they thought they were ready for go live. Now, the results were really, really consistent. They were consistent across branches, they were consistent across different job roles. And the results were a massive endorsement of the software and of the training program. In fact, they had a satisfaction rating of greater than 96%, and the verbatims that people came up with absolutely matched that. They were endorsing the training, the methodology, the timing. In fact, even the coffee was deemed to be at the right temperature. So the training was absolutely A1 okay. So the survey delivery was fully automated using ProfilerLive, and the project team were able to quickly and accurately analyse the responses. And as I say, the users were comfortable with the system, loved the training, ready to go live, 96% satisfaction. So rather than the story ending with the project just there, using the feedback as the assurance of go live readiness, what we wanted to do was to have some hard assessment. So we shifted to phase 2, and we rolled out a hard assessment. So let's look at a small selection of questions that were included in the assessment. We can see on screen the first one. Now, this question bank was built by the project team within the insurance company and one of our trainers in about half a day. So it's very quick to do. And we're able to use 6 different question types that we've got available in the system. So we can do multiple choice, short answer, true, false, matching, interactive, and long answer question types. This particular example is an interactive or hotspot question, which contains a screenshot and is looking for the user to be able to demonstrate the best practice way to deal with a particular scenario by clicking on an element of the screen which has been deemed to be correct. So you perform a multi-category search and you can see your results, you get interrupted and called away from your desk, and when you return you want to perform the same search again. What is the quickest way to do that with using just one click of the mouse? So the meat of the question and what's been tested here is users' understanding of the process flow and the shortcuts. So we're trying to establish that people really understand the best practice, and the best practice gets established early in the organization, early in the implementation. So, Michael, could you move on one? So the second question here is a multiple choice question, which is testing users' understanding of description protocols. Now, this was really important to our client because the description protocols on date were really important to being able to search on a record in the future. So if the description protocol date was incorrect, then searching later was going to be difficult to trace a particular document. So the options that were chosen, or the distractors, were deliberately structured to test how robust the understanding of the users was in what those particular protocols were. And the third question we're going to show you, please, Michael, thank you, is one which looks at a more context-based and represents very real world. So this is a knowledge check that the user understands the most efficient and therefore quickest and simplest way to complete a step in a process, and using the information on the screenshot and the narrative to pose the question. And this is an interesting example because this was a question that a lot of people actually ended up getting wrong. So, Michael, that was the summary of the hard assessments there that were taken, or some samples of hard assessment questions that were taken. And here what we can see is the results which were achieved by the user community. And basically, unlike the survey results, which had shown some 96% satisfaction and everybody was A-OK, the actual average across the entire business achieved was 64%. What the organisation was looking for was a significant improvement on that level. And what is hidden underneath that overall average of 64% is some really quite dramatic misses at job role and also office-based level.
So, Simon, just let me play my Columbo here. So in terms of one more question, so just to verify my understanding, so we're saying that 96% of people said the training was great and they were ready to go live, and then when we came to test their competency and their capability to validate that they'd made that transition from knowledge to ability in ADCAR, only 64%, well, the average score was 64% correct, and there were huge variations as well in that score. And I guess that's, the obvious question that begs is, I guess it would have been pretty catastrophic if they'd gone live with that level of competency.
Absolutely catastrophic, because what the organisation was looking for was the average to be 80% and for all users to be achieving at that minimum criteria. And basically the day-to-day functioning of the business was a hard switch over from paper to paperless. It was all going to go very badly wrong 9 o'clock on the Monday morning. So yeah, they were very concerned at the level of actual proficiency, particularly concerned at the level of proficiency against what was claimed. So what it really highlighted here was the mismatch between what people will tell you and what they can actually do, and therein lies the risk.
Wow. Okay, and now you're going to go into explain a bit more what's underneath that 64% average scores with a few examples, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we just click on, what we can see here is just going to start looking in a kind of tiered or hierarchical way, is some of the reporting that comes out of the box. So we can see here there's a high-level infographic that the project team or the leadership team can see. And you can see how that particular group is broken out. So only 16% of the user community are actually ready to go live. Nearly 70% are absolutely at risk, and a further 15% of users are kind of close enough, but still failing to achieve the required level of being able to demonstrate the required level of proficiency within the system. So you've got a dynamic infographic there, and what we can do is we can slice the data in any particular way that it's been categorized within the system. In this particular instance, we categorized by branch location and also by job role. So, Michael, if we can move on, maybe one slide. We can see here, just looking at leads and looking particularly at the underwriting community, well, nobody's ready to go live in leads in terms of underwriting, so the more senior people within the company not knowing how to use the system. What I've not got a slide on actually, but just is in the data, is absolutely nobody in any of the Scottish offices was competent. Every single member of the Scottish offices was at risk, which is just a quirk of what was going on with that particular user group. But you can see from this, it's highly hierarchical in terms of its data structure, so we can look at users at a high level. If we move on once more, we can start to drill into, at a dashboard level, we can start to see the roles broken out, we can start to see the branches broken out in terms of the assessment result. And this is starting to get to a place where the L&D team and the project team can start to identify what the specific problem is. Is this a problem with the training delivery? Is this a problem with people not fully attending the training, or quite what? And again, all in slice and dice context. So as we move down to the next level, we can see how individual people have performed. And this is very typical of a training situation, where we've got 3 different competencies that we're looking at here: managing files in DMS, saving in DMS, and searching in DMS. And we can see that there are different levels of competency at those different aspects. And what normally we see in go-live scenarios is that not everybody has the same development requirements, not everybody has the same strengths. So the individual learning requirements that are needed to enable people at a one-by-one level to be proficient are in fact very bespoke to them, because of their experience levels. And what we can see here is the solution looks down at competency level by individual, and we can target them as with learning intervention. If we move on again, Michael, we can again trip down the hierarchy, and if we move on again, so we're now going to look at question level. So this is, because the data all ends up in a SQL database, what we can see here is we can see the percentage of questions that were answered incorrectly and correctly. So we've got a question that we looked at earlier, the following email is stored in Outlook and needs to be saved to DMS, 90% of people actually got that question wrong. That was one of the 3 questions that we looked at earlier. And it's really highlighted an issue with the way that that particular piece of knowledge was transferred. And in fact, if we move on again, what we can see is at a very, very granular level, literally at pixel level accuracy, we can see where people were actually dropping their or clicking their mouse. And so we've got to see that 108 of 120 people who took that particular question got it wrong. And we can see where there are common levels of accuracy, where the yellow dots are, that's actually the answer, and the common levels of misunderstanding, which is, really helps an L&D team if they want to target a particular solution that they know where everybody's going wrong. And in this particular case, that's in fact what it is that they did, by identifying the solution through an understanding of the common areas of misunderstanding. So we've got a really intense amount of very granular detail that's available to the team there, that enables them to very accurately understand the proficiency of the and to run fixes to move proficiency from where it is to where it needs to be, and then to retest. So what did everybody get out of this whole kind of experience? Well, fundamentally, the project team were able to fix the issue before it materialized into a problem, and DMS is now working within the client, and they were able to do that and deliver absolute confidence into the exec team that things weren't right, and the project team were able to fix it. The visibility enabled those fixes to be targeted to branch users, to particular user communities within the overall company, and fundamentally delivered the insights to make it all just happen in a seamless kind of a way. Michael.
Yes, I was going to say that's quite fantastic. What strikes me is that the tool is very, not complex is the wrong word, it's very detailed. And that's great because it allows you to drill down to the source of the lack of ability, if you like, the lack of competency, which is what you need to do in order to put in the right fixes, as you say. Typically, how long does it take to build up those right questions? How do you know you're asking the right questions? And that looks a really comprehensive tool. I would have thought that to deploy this kind of capability is quite a task and takes quite a time. What's typically how long does it take?
Well, in this, there is a lot of detail there, Michael. Absolutely, and it is the detail that gives the clarity and the visibility to enable fixes to be put in place with great confidence. That particular solution was pulled together by 3 people in half a day. So there was a day and a half's work to pull that together. And what that was the subject matter experts in the project team who knew the DMS system inside out, along with one of our trainers who has a great understanding of how to ask a question, how to frame a question. So putting those 2 expert groups together, and very quickly we were able to create a question bank that was appropriately sized for the particular challenge. For bigger implementations, there's a bit more work. Obviously, we're running one with a blood 8 days of question bank build in that particular one, but the question bank is much more significant and covers very, very significant critical skills within that particular area. So it's a bit horses and courses, Michael, but in general terms, subject matter experts understand the systems, and we understand how to write questions, and the two things can be pulled together very, very quickly.
Okay, that's great. And I guess, as you say, in the blood testing bank, you want to make sure that the questions do work, because we don't want the wrong kind of blood test. It's not so life and death maybe as in the insurance industry. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, and John, I think we have a poll now. Is that right? We want to assess the audience's view of the sort of executive appetite for testing competency and capability.
Yes, that's right. What's the appetite of your executive leadership to increase levels of adoption and utilization of new capabilities? Do they recognize that there's a problem in this space, as was indicated earlier on by your responses to the polls at the beginning? I just want to remind you as well that you can access the slides for today's webinar using the handouts pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. If you click the little plus, you'll see a link, and you can click that, and that's how you can get hold of the slides from the presentation. So most of you have voted now, so I'll just wait a couple of seconds if anyone else wants to cast their votes, and then close it down and take a look at the results. So 34% high, so that's promising for about a third of our audience. Only a handful are saying that they don't care, but a significant chunk, 28%, are saying they don't measure it, so they can't manage it. So they're not actually measuring that adoption and utilization at all, let alone the capability prior to go live.
Okay, that's interesting. I think that I guess executive leadership just expect these things, the new capabilities, to work, and when they're launched. And unfortunately, people are not like that. We all choose to accept and deal with change and take forward the new capabilities of the change at different speeds and at different levels of competency and capability. So it's interesting that a significant percentage of you, 28%, don't measure it. So really, it's quite tricky to be able to manage it in that situation. So, Simon, did you want to just summarize here and talk a little bit more about what we've learned?
Yeah, I think that I think actually just anecdotally, Michael, I thought the funniest thing actually about that particular case study was that that particular solution rolled out to another country, and it was copy pasted into that other country with one exception: they didn't take us with them. Because somebody in the project team at a more senior level decided not to invest that what is a very modest amount of money. That project went absolutely superbly well, with unfortunately one significant difference, and that was that they had problems with their go lives because their users didn't know what it was that they were doing. So I thought it was kind of ironic that having proved it once and when they went again, didn't use the proficiency checks and had problems. So I thought that I think it's highly relevant that proficiency checks are included really as a natural part of go lives, which is the way that particular company is now going. So I think they were once bitten and twice they're now shy. So from our perspective, I think the overall kind of element to this is that if we can develop the appropriate question bank and ensure that users are proficient and therefore confident in the use of new systems, then we end up getting a much faster delivery stream of benefit from the new solution that goes into place. And their ability to demonstrate capability, to work efficiently, to establish the best practice ways of doing things is all a vital part of the overall go-live process. And I think going back to one of the early polls that 70% of the benefit stream delivery is dependent upon the user community, then this represents an important option within the project manager's toolkit in order to ensure that the 70% actually gets delivered and delivered quickly.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you've kind of got there a control experiment, if you like, sort of with and without the use of Profiler, and very different results in those two things. So thank you for that. That's quite interesting. So yeah, any questions that you have, that would be great. And John, I think we've got a poll asking if you would like more information about any particular areas, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. So I've just launched that now. Again, you can select more than one. You can select more than one of the options in relation to this. So if you'd like to hear more about Profiler, more about the process change management training, that hasn't been the focus of today's webinar, but I did mention it up at the beginning, and we've obviously been talking about those training courses more in other webinars in the series. And also the new ProSci Best Practices report is going to be released very soon, and if you'd like to hear about that, let us know. Also, just flashed up on the slide before we launched this poll were details of another webinar soon, March the 9th, which is going to feature ProfilerLive in its application to cybersecurity. So I'm just going to chat out the link to that now. So you may wish to check that out too if you'd like to find out more about ProfilerLive, or if you've responded that you'd like to hear more about ProfilerLive in this poll, then yeah, Profiler will be in touch with you. So I'll just leave that one up, and just to say thank you all very much for joining. Another reminder, you can get the slides from that handouts pane. I'll leave the webinar up for a while longer so you can get those if you need to. Our next CMC webinar is on assessing and building your organizational change capability. So I'll chat out the link in a moment for you to join that. That's coming up in a few weeks' time. And yeah, just to say thank you all very much for joining. And Michael and Simon, we haven't had any questions coming in through the chat pane. So just thank you both for a very interesting webinar. I don't know if you have any closing comments at all, but it's been great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you found it useful. A lot more focus today in terms of the specific transition, which we think is so important to ensure that projects succeed in what they set out to do, which is to deliver the return on investment and the expected business outcomes. And so the takeaway for you is really strongly think about, if you're working in a complex project, or you've got a project that's about to go live, strongly think about making sure there is a test of competency built in. And if you want to have a tool that helps you to measure and inspect that test down to the granular level that you've seen here, then we think ProfilerLive is a really good option. So please get in touch with us. So thank you very much. And look forward to seeing you on our next webinar in a couple of weeks' time, and that's going to be all about assessing and building your organizational change capability. So just register at cmcpartnership.com/webinars if you'd like to join us for the 7th and final webinar in this particular series. So we're going to let you go a few minutes early today. Thank you for your attention, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. And big thank you to Simon for your contribution today.
Thank you, Michael, and it was a great pleasure to be part of today's webinar.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Goodbye.